Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2016. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just would like everyone to know that this meeting is being televised and recorded on local cable television. So with that, we would like to open the budget public hearing for the school budget for 2016-17. Okay, Pat, if you'd like to approach Mrs. Campbell, if you'd like to approach the microphone. Press the button.
If I'm first, then I can go to my rehearsal. And you can say, shh, she's gone. I want to reiterate something that I reiterated at the Selectmen's meeting. I believe in offering a full-time kindergarten to all children without cost. Children should not have to leave during the day. And free public education, I believe, is the foundation of our democracy. I hope you let parents know that they can keep their children out of school if they're not mature enough for full-time kindergarten. I used to call this when I was first and second grade teacher, and I was talking to parents that they may have to repeat the year. It would be advisable, and we always consulted with the parents, but I always told them it's a gift of time, and I believe that holding your children out of kindergarten, if you have any doubt about their maturity, that they should keep them out for that year. I also know that we have a Title I school at the Huckleberry Hill, which means that 10% of the children there, I believe was the figure, Jane, are at the poverty level. We don't like to think of that in Linfield. We don't often think about that, but that's another reason why kindergarten should be offered to all children full-time. As far as the position, Director of Teaching and Learning position, what you're doing apparently is taking a $70,000 or $75,000 position and adding $50,000 to it to create what would be called in many systems an assistant superintendent for teaching and learning. What I believe you should do, a lot of the job description which I went through, I think it's a duplication of effort. It's duplication of what the principal, the teachers, and the curriculum specialists should be doing together. When they do these things together, there's more buy-in. They have early release days that this can be done in. We know they have to have many credits every 5 years to qualify for recertification as an educator. So I think it's a great way to get buy-in and knowledge from people when they do some of that development and integration from one grade to the other themselves. So what I suggest you do is not take that $50,000, create a much higher paying position, and just change the title a little bit for the present one and develop a new job description if you weren't pleased with the currently existing position for which someone is retiring. So now we agree on one thing and don't agree on something else. As far as the music, I was a music teacher and have enjoyed my exposure to music early on in my life, for my whole life. And I think it's a different part of the brain that's developed, and it's also having had a family member with dementia, that part of the brain stays. They recognize paintings that they loved years ago. They recognize songs from years ago. So it truly is a lifetime gift. So I'm inclined to agree with having a music teacher. Another, I guess, one for one of the schools, you already have a full-time one for the other school. So I think all the children should have equal access to that too. And I think music teachers would be a wonderful person to help people that may not have had as much exposure to the arts as you and I may have had, and make suggestions how to make plays come alive and do plays. That's what I used to do. I used to create rap songs out of phonics. And people that have a background in music can do those kinds of things. And I hope that the music will also include music appreciation, music theory. There's so much to music other than just singing or playing an instrument, but singing and playing an instrument, of course, are important exposure as well. What I'm wondering about it is it being put in just to give the teachers time out of the classroom, or are the teachers going to stay in the classroom while the music teacher is teaching? I think that's an important distinction. Sometimes my experience has been we create these kinds of positions so the teachers have more time out of the classroom, and that's the wrong rationale to me. Let's see. The last night at the selectmen's meeting, it became apparent that you had requested another bus. And parents and other citizens in town know that the buses are not full. They're not nearly full. And at one time, when we had 11 buses, this whole city of Lynn had 11 buses. They have 28 schools. We only have 4. So the DPW energy supply is increasing by 3.6% this year. For school buses and school maintenance, I realize that also includes school maintenance. And the expenses for the buses are going to increase by 20%, $202,000. So I think that, and I know that you've consolidated bus stops. I've heard that from parents. So I don't know what the rationale is for adding yet another bus, 16 buses. They used to be able to park on one side of the town hall parking lot, and now they don't even fit there. Now they have to put some of them on the other side. So it's a real visual reminder every time I go down to put my leaves and things down there. The other question, I know you're going to ratify a contract. Jane's office has been very gracious in telling me that I can't get the line item budget yet because you haven't signed the contract yet. And I appreciate the respect with which I'm treated. Here's one of my concerns on salaries. I tracked the middle school salary. Not that I'm picking on one particular school in particular, but I just wanted to make it easier to explain. So I looked at media specialist, psychologist, and speech therapist. In 19, that shows you how far back I go. In 2010, a media specialist, it's the section of the budget is 2340. The salary was $54,095. We then went on through 2013 with an 8% increase, 2014 with a 7% increase, 2015 with a 7% increase, and fiscal year 16 with an 8% increase. So now the media specialist and it is singular, and I look carefully to see if it's singular or plural, starting at 54,095, now up to 78,229 is a 24,134 increase. So I find that quite rapidly increasing. And I don't get it. I just don't think it's responsible to the people in Lynnfield. It may be wonderful for the media specialist, but anyhow, then the psychologist in it's 2800, line 2800. In 2010, 108, 191. Then we had in 2013, 5% increase, 4% increase in 2014, 2015, a 4% increase, 2016, a 4% increase. So we're up to 162,376. That's a 54,185% increase as I read it. Where in the private sector are people getting increases like this? It's amazing to me. And then the speech therapist, in fiscal year 210, it was line 2305. In 2015, it changed to 2320. And in fiscal year 10, that position was awarded 52,201. In 2013, we had a 7% increase. In 2014, a 6% increase. In 2015, a 7% increase. 2016, another 7% increase. So now that position is earning $72,459. And that from 2010 is a $20,000, $20,258 increase. So I think you should be looking at that. I can't imagine if I did that to other positions in the budget besides just the middle school salaries, what the revelation would be. So I ask you to look at that and try to consider what's responsible for people of Lynnfield. I know recently we had an article in the Boston Globe that the median salary, and that's median, not average, I realize, but is $114,000 a year. That's not so for a lot of the senior citizens you've got in town, like myself. And I think for all the senior citizens that have paid their taxes faithfully for many, many years, for me only 23, for many of the other senior citizens many more years, I think you should consider what's responsible in the salaries. We're not saying cut out the positions. We're saying you need to look at the huge increases. I thank you very much. I thank you for your volunteer work. I sometimes tell people I'm my own nonprofit organization for all that, because everything you do costs money when you're volunteering. I know that. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Campbell. Have fun at your choir practice. Anyone else for the budget? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, we need a motion.
Move to close the public hearing on the FY17 budget.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, excellent. Move to the next item, which is another motion for the minutes for approval.
Move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of March 8th, 2016.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Move to approve the executive session minutes for 12/16/2016 or 2015, 11/1/2016, 1/27, 2/11, and 3/2/2016.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, thank you. The minutes pass. Okay, so our next agenda item is the Lynnfield Middle School Curriculum Center Assessment Meetings and Tutors presentation.
So I would like to invite Mr. Ralston Mrs. Robertson and Miss Ambrose to the front table. There has been a lot of changes at the middle school over the past few years, and one of the changes that actually took place over last summer that has just been implemented this year is the new Linfield Middle School Curriculum Center. And so tonight, we've got 3 people who are going to tell you what has actually been happening at the Curriculum Center and how the teachers are using it to address their teaching and learning at the middle school. So welcome, Stephen, Kate, and Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I know in several meetings throughout the course of the year, I've referenced the Curriculum Center in some of my presentations, and we're here this evening to talk specifically about the LMS Curriculum Center. So the evolution of this is 3 years ago, we converted our department head structure and model at the middle school, where it was part teaching, part administrative, to 2 full-time directors. And again, that was 3 years ago. We're in our 3rd year of that. And as far as physical spaces, one director was in the main office. We had a room in the main office, and the other director was upstairs. And last June, towards the end of the year, in looking at, Kate and Katie in the present roles as director, and realizing that they do quite a bit of work together over the summer, and looking at my expansive office, I had made the recommendation, and with Jane's approval, I switched over to a smaller office in the main office suite, and converted my expansive office into a curriculum center. Kate Robertson came down from the 2nd floor where her space was. It was the previous summer was a real hardship because in July and August it's very warm upstairs without air conditioning, and oftentimes she couldn't even access her office because of the custodial work around waxing and stripping floors and so forth. So this past summer, it worked out very, very well to have both Kate and Katie in the new curriculum center. Their desks are right next to each other. They each have their own phone lines. We've got a big conference table, resources. It's really been an outstanding move, and then I moved over to the smaller office. Kate's former office upstairs was realized space that we now use for small group instruction, primarily for special ed in the 7th grade area, which was a much needed space, so we were able to utilize that as well. Looking back several years ago to the primary roles of the department head roles, they were overseeing the budget for their departments, the ordering for materials, running department meetings, MCAS analysis, supervision of staff within their departments, were the main focus of their roles. And with the expanded role of director, there's a lot more around the curriculum mapping, professional development, leading assessment meetings, working with different teams and grade levels around common assessments, really spearheading some of our initiatives around keys to literacy, again, the Atlas mapping. And this isn't just something that's happening on Kate's side with ELA, Humanities and Social Studies, or on Katie's side with Math and Science. It's across the entire building, and including foreign language and our exploratories as well. And having the 2 of them in close proximity to work on, if it's a keys to literacy strategy, what might that look like in an English classroom versus a math classroom? And the collaboration between Kate and Katie is phenomenal, some of the best I've ever seen professionally. And I'll let them speak a little bit more about some of the other things that they spearhead. But what happens in the Curriculum Center, obviously it's their office. they'll hold data assessment meetings, some department meetings, depending on the number of people in the department. If you can fit in that space, they'll use that. Teacher planning, a lot of times teachers will come down during their planning time, especially if their room is being used for another course, and they'll collaborate together with Kate or Katie, and it's just a real nice space for resource sharing as well. So at this point, I'd like to turn things over to Katie to talk about the assessment meetings and what that looks like.
Thank you. So Mr. Ralston had mentioned that we do lots of meetings in the Curriculum Center, and the one I'm going to speak about is the assessment meeting part. So we have grade level content specific assessment meetings, and we hold them throughout the year. And it's really a way for the teachers and for the directors and the special ed teachers to all sit down and look at the actual assessment and go over it and figure out how we can use that data to help the students and to help the teachers. So this happens at the beginning of the year with the different pre-tests that we give. It happens with the interim assessments that we give every 6 to 8 weeks. We look at the DDMs in the Curriculum Center, and we really use that space to sit down with the teachers and to look at the students and look at the data in order to help drive the instruction for the students that the teachers have in front of them. The other part to those assessment meetings is we start to look at the students that we would recommend for the tutorials. So we start to make recommendations for that during those assessment meetings.
So to follow up on the assessment meetings, where the assessment meetings might happen with, say, myself and 2 7th grade English teachers and the special education teacher at the 7th grade level, we'll be focusing more on the English content. Katie would have a similar meeting with the math teacher, the science teacher. We'd have a similar meeting with the social studies teacher, et cetera. We would then follow up after all of those assessment meetings had happened, and we look at the students on a whole team. So we look at the math, the science, the English, the social studies together. And really the focus of these meetings, they happen in October, December, February, April, and then again in June. We're really looking at the whole student and how we can put things in place to help the students improve emotionally, socially, and academically. With this meeting, it's everyone who would be working with a team of students, very similar to the elementary model. We had kind of been looking at the elementary model we have here in Linfield for a while and looking at how we could make this work at the middle school. And by breaking it into these kind of 2 separate types of meetings has really, I think, worked in putting the best strategies in place for the students. When we get together, we really focus on looking at what's working for individual students at a team and what can we do differently to help all students be successful. And when we come up with those list of strategies, we then put that on the agenda for the next meeting. So the meetings are all set at the beginning of the year, and we're constantly looking back. Okay, we put this in place for this student at the October meeting. How is that going? Do we need to do anything else? What would that be? And it's nice because we can all put our heads together and really focus on what's best for each student. Some of the strategies might range from creating checklists for students to specific activities to take place during that team time or stage time when teachers have a bulk of their students that they can work with individually or in small groups, or just to give extra enhancements for certain content. It's also when we really look at the tutorial groupings. And we look at, okay, well, this student might be recommended for math tutoring, this student's recommended for ELA, but they might also be in the chorus or band. So we kind of keep track of that master spreadsheet of who has what when, so we can plug in some different supports for students according to their schedule and what they need. So one of those things is the tutorials. And we have 6 tutorial teachers or tutors at the middle school. There are 3 math and 3 English. These are just some of the classrooms. They're all in the pod spaces in the 5th and 6th grade wings. And they've really done a nice job making them really mini classrooms. The English tutors are all Massachusetts certified educators, and they are all in the different classrooms at different points during the day. So they're working very closely with the classroom teachers. They have small groups of 4 to 5 students, And they're really focusing on those areas determined at the meetings that students need to work on individually. So they might be working on specific reading skills or writing skills, and they're giving kids extra practice to kind of beef up those skills, but they're also weaving it into the classroom work that students might need to get done. Math.
So in terms of the math tutorials, we also have 3 math tutors who are all certified teachers and all former teachers. And they offer small groups during that stage time and during the team time. The groups can have, there are approximately 4 to 5 students. Some are smaller, some are bigger, depending really upon the need of the actual students in front of them. We do cap them. We try to cap them at 5 students to keep it reasonable. And again, we use the data from the assessments that we give in order to figure out the students. We move students in and out of the groups accordingly. We do look at other assessments such as MCAS and try to use that data to fill in the gaps that students might have to help them improve in their areas that they need to work on. And basically the tutors really tailor it toward the students that they have in front of them and really create a program for them to meet their specific needs. And we have one math tutor who's able to get into some of the math classrooms as well at the LA.
So in closing, our 2 directors, on either side of me are just tremendous instructional leaders, master teachers. They will, obviously they have an evaluative role in their daily routine, but then they're also in classrooms, observing, providing informal feedback, modeling lessons on occasion. There have been a few times where we've had maybe a teacher go home sick in the middle of the day, and Kate and Katie have jumped up and, math or English, let me get in there. And so they're still really tied very, very closely to the classroom. They have access to the Redeker student information system, so they can access all the students' schedules, grades, transcripts, and so forth. They're both part of our middle school medical emergency response team. We had a drill last week, and they're an integral part of that as far as 2 people that we can rely on at a moment's notice for whatever we need, whether it's monitoring students or taking over for a teacher who might need to step out, or whatever we might need. Again, the collaboration I can't speak enough about, and the main office at the middle school is now just a real hub for teachers at any point of the day, because teachers have different common planning time. You will see teachers down in the office, accessing any of us. Certainly our 2 directors. At this point, I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you, Steve. Catherine and Catherine. Slide number 4, question about the standards-based interim assessments. A homegrown created by the teachers or part of the curriculum textbooks content, if you will?
A lot of the English ones are created by me and by our teachers, so it's kind of a combination that I'll create them based on the standards. Sometimes we'll throw some MCAS or Park-like practice questions that are tied to specific standards, so we can get a good prediction of how they're doing, not only meeting our benchmarks and our curriculum, but how they'll perform on the tests that we'll take later on.
And that's similar for math as well. They're homegrown. Yeah.
I'm just curious, do you find that there is any particular constituency that's taking up a majority of the time or a greater piece of the time, whether it's students who are struggling, excelling, that kind of middle 50%, is...
We try to really focus on all of the students. And so, at different meetings, if for some reason, we talk about certain students at one meeting, we might start with the other students that we didn't talk about at the next meeting to make sure that we spend as much of an equal time that we can.
And we also take a lot of time to really reflect on how the meetings go, and we solicit feedback from the teachers to see how is this format. And we've gotten some good feedback on how to plan the meetings and, what order do we want to go in? Do we want to look at a certain test? At the beginning of the year, we started sorting it by the grade reading assessment and looked at students in a certain order, and then we reshuffled it as we went, and we sort of, figure it out as, tailor it to what seems to be working best.
And our school psychologists are present at these meetings as well. And, they sometimes, it's not just the tutorials or, different things the classroom teachers are doing, but sometimes there may be an organization group or executive functioning group that a school psychologist would lead as a result of the discussion and the concerns.
So, just a couple, go ahead, Tim.
Steve, this is for you. Have you found this arrangement, has it cued you into things that you may have not known was going on in the building educationally by having everybody in that hub?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just from a standpoint of being able to take 2 steps out of your office and just have those, those passing, very quick, in the moment type, quick conversations, check-ins, and very, very quickly, without even having to resort to email, we might have a question or something, let's go over and, go over to guidance and check in with the school psychologist, or, let's check in and, Ricky Shanklin may have been at a meeting last week, so we're all right there in close proximity, and it really has brought us all, very close together and very on target with everything that's going on.
Tim, actually, that's one of the things that I was going to say is first, a compliment to all 3 of you because you've done a great job of pulling this together. And Stephen, for your insight to know and understand that putting that curriculum center in your office would create that hub, and that's a perfect way to explain it. Walking into the middle school now and having the conversations in the office being about teaching and learning and listening to teachers talk about their practice is just, it's absolutely exhilarating to see that. And Kate and Katie, just to compliment you on doing such a great job at the assessment meetings. It's a little bit more challenging, or very challenging at the middle school level, to be able to really implement this in such an authentic way. At the elementary level, it's a little bit easier because of the isolation of the classrooms, but you've done a great job of reflecting at sometimes even the middle of every year to say, no, this is not working. I think that the assessment meetings at the middle school have really changed in the way that you do them, because you are listening to the teachers and you are being reflective. This slide that shows the way that it has changed, I think it's we serve the students better by you having done that. So a compliment to you, and to also really going out and getting great tutors to serve our students. And then you taking the time to really give them the professional development they need, and helping them with their schedules and working all of that through, and really being able to communicate with them on what our students need in those tutoring sessions. That, in my opinion, is really what has made it so successful. So congratulations to all 3 of you for doing that. I think our middle school is stronger because of it.
I think it's a good example of how sometimes putting resources not in the classroom can truly benefit the classroom. And the fact that it's not always the teacher in front of the room, but the supports that the teacher has behind him or her that can really help benefit the students and help them all grow.
Yeah, and one of the roles is, even, with the director, similar to the department head role, is the classroom evaluations. And, several years ago when the model changed and it's more walkthroughs in smaller chunks as opposed to, entire full lessons as we used to do. Kate and Katie will go into classrooms together. They'll go in with myself, with Ms. Shanklin. They've had a couple mornings with Ms. Tremblay going in. And that is just further speaks to our collaboration that, if a teacher's receiving feedback from Kate, Katie, myself, or Ricky Shanklin, that there's a consistency between the 4 of us. I'm not steal anyone's thunder who's speaking next, but segue, how's that? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Okay, Next is the teacher instructional rounds and administrative walkthroughs.
So actually, Stephen, that was a perfect segue into the next group. So we have two parts to this presentation. The first part is talking about the teacher instructional rounds that we have implemented at all of our schools. And the second part of this is going to be the administrative walkthroughs. So first, we're going to have Brian Bemis, principal of Huckleberry Hill School, and Melissa Weiland, who is assistant to the, say it again? Oh, just Melissa? So we're just going to have Melissa Weiland, who is the assistant to the principal, talk about the instructional rounds. And the reason why Melissa is sitting at the table is she actually began this initiative at Huckleberry Hill School. And because of her work on this and the way that she has designed this for Huckleberry, actually the other schools have used her work as a model to implement it. So we're going to have Melissa share with you about instructional rounds for teachers.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's truly a privilege to work in Linfield, so thanks for all that you do for the families and the staff. I want to start by giving Brian the credit for coming up with this plan for us. He had attended a Dr. Robert Marzano conference and got inspired by what was talked about there about having teachers observe each other and share best practice, and he contacted me and said, do you think our staff would be interested in this? And I said, absolutely. So I'm just going to read you this definition so you have an idea of what instructional rounds is. It's a confidential process through which 2 or more professional colleagues work together to reflect on current practices, expand, refine, and build new skills, share ideas, teach one another, conduct classroom research, or solve problems in the classroom. And we use that as a basis to introduce it to our staff, and we went from there. So the first thing we needed to do was come up with the goals. Why are we going to invest time and money into this initiative? And as you know, improving student achievement is the big one in these types of school initiatives. So that was our first goal and most important, but in order to do that, we were going to reflect on and improve our teaching. We hope to continue to build a common language, and as you know, it's something we've done in this district over, the past 5 years is really trying to have a common language so our kids hear things consistently over time and in the different schools, and then also to build collegiality among staff and a new respect for people in different positions in the building. And I'll quickly tell you a history. We started this 4 years. This is our 4th year doing instructional rounds at Huckleberry. And when Brian contacted me, he said he really didn't want it to be administratively led. He didn't want it to feel evaluative or anything like a walkthrough. He really wanted this to be about teachers, leading teachers, and sharing best practices. So he kind of handed it over to me, which I appreciated. It was a great challenge that challenged me professionally. So originally, the first year we did it, it was voluntary. We were hopeful that people would join, and we felt like they would, but we invited people at our opening staff meeting in September, and we had 17 teachers, staff members apply that for, not apply, you got in it if you may, that joined us on that first year. And it was also important to Brian that the staff had a voice in the design of the process and the protocols and what it would look like. So he really did hand it over to us and let us come up with what instructional rounds would look like at the Huckleberry Hill School. The first thing we needed to do was to form groups, and as a team we decided that we would share our strengths and our weaknesses, and based on those I would be able to match people who could learn something from another person. And we also looked at classroom concerns. So for example, this year we have a teacher who's in her own life practicing mindfulness and took a course on it and how to bring it to school. I had another teacher who had some kids with serious anxiety in their class. So I was able to put them together in a group so that she could learn from the teacher that knows a lot about mindfulness. So, and I thought it was really, I was excited by how the staff embraced it. It's kind of scary. You're going to have, your peers and you're watching you teach. And so I thought that was really exciting that teachers were so willing and excited about it. And I also thought it talked a lot about the staff when people were willing to share areas of weakness. What I found when I did the questionnaire was that people really shared their weaknesses, and they felt they didn't know all the strengths they had, and by being part of this process they got to learn how strong they were in different areas because they heard about it from their staff. just so you have an idea of what an observation day looks like, in Huckleberry Hill right now, we have 4 teams of about 10 people in each team. So we will meet 10 times throughout the year. You're only out of your classroom though for 1 hour. So if you were all on my team in September, you would all come and observe me in September. And then we might observe Jane the next month. So each person has an opportunity to be observed. The teacher talks to the team ahead of time, shares what the lesson will be, what the objectives are, asks for certain feedback based on what the lesson is or places that they want to grow. And when it happens, we have a substitute in our classroom for 1 hour. We go and we observe a lesson for 30 minutes, and then we take 5 or 10 minutes to self-reflect. So much of this is based on reflection, not judging the lesson, but really reflecting on your own teaching. So we take that time to quietly reflect, and then we open it up to a discussion. In those discussions, we reflect on current practice, we refine and we build our skills, we share ideas, teach one another. And again, as much as we love Brian, at the beginning when we started this, I think it was really important that he allowed and respected us and trusted us to do this on our own and to have professional conversations about best practice and to also be honest about areas of weakness and places that we wanted advice. So I thought that said a lot about you too and your trust for the staff. We use this reflection sheet as a guide to the conversations. So I'll just quickly go over it. Strategies and instructional practice I saw being used effectively that I use, and everyone has a copy of this every time we do the observation and takes notes throughout it. Strategies and instructional practice I saw that I already use but would modify based on my observations. And strategies that I don't currently use but would like to start. And then we also added specific feedback that was requested by the teacher, and we put requested because, again, we didn't want it to feel evaluative. Some teachers were really comfortable and want feedback, and we thought for some people that might be overwhelming, especially maybe a new teacher. But what we found was that every teacher really wanted that feedback, and that was really meaningful. So Brian and I did research before. This is what the research says about peer coaching or instructional rounds. Promotes more effective instructional practices, helps teachers learn and refine new strategies, again, improves student achievement, builds a supportive school culture that promotes teamwork and ownership for all student success. And I think the Linfield District is really good at making sure that every staff member owns every student in the building. So it was nice for us to have this opportunity to work together. And again, teaching can be really isolative. You can be in a room and be with 20 kids for 6 hours and not, see other staff members. And there might be, even in an elementary school, staff that you only have said hi to in the hallways and never had a conversation with. So this really helped. Every group is mixed with different grade levels, a specialist, a special educator. So it's a great variety of teachers. And this results in ongoing professional conversations about improving teaching and learning. And on the days that we have an observation day, and Brian can attest to this, that you hear chatter in the hallway. It was so exciting. That first year we were really nervous and excited, and we just hoped it was going to be beneficial and do all the things that we wanted it to. And I was so nervous, and I had this sub coverage, and I was running around the building, and I heard such great conversations, and people were so excited. And in the lunchroom, we had set up norms like you're not supposed to talk about what you see, but people were like, you should see this lesson. It was so amazing. And the staff was really excited, and they felt like they were really respected too to take this on and do it on our own. We also had some added benefits. Again, I think Linfield's so great at making sure every adult owns every student in the building, but because we told the kids about what we were doing, we were honest saying we wanted to improve on things, and we care about all of you. It was a powerful message for students to see. Kids would be like, wow, my wellness teacher was in my math lesson today, or a fourth grader might say, my first grade teacher came and watched me in fourth grade. And so the kids really got the message that we all cared about every single one of them and that their learning was important in all different areas of the building. It also helped to build positive peer relationships. Like I said, in school, even in a small school, you still don't always get to interact with some of the staff members that are there. So we mixed the group so that you would get to know more people. We had a better understanding of staff in different roles, and I think a new respect when we were able to observe somebody we haven't seen in their practice, and it was really helpful to build respect in the building. Overall improved school culture, a supportive environment with open doors, The staff took this and then were encouraged, if your kids are at a special and you're still concerned about this, here's someone you can go and watch. And we encouraged people to continue to do that when they were able to within their day, and I definitely see that happening more often since we started instructional rounds. Also, positive peer pressure to improve teaching and take risks. I was nervous the first time I had, 7 of my colleagues come in my classroom because it was so important to me. They respected what I did, and it's mandated now throughout the district. But what I think about this is every day we're telling our kids, take an academic risk, participate in class. It's okay if you don't know the answer, just make a guess in front of everybody. And I thought one of the great benefits of this was it put us in their shoes, and it reminded us of what it is like to take a risk and to be willing to share weaknesses and work on improvement. I want to thank Jane and Brian for supporting this when we originally started it. It's so meaningful for the staff. And I want to close by, I had emailed the staff and let them know I was going to share it today. They were so excited about it. And I said, if anyone's willing to send me some quotes, that would be great because I want them to hear your voice. You helped make this what it is today. And I got like 25. So I won't read 25, but I'm going to read a few from different grade levels and a specialist. Many of us, like our students, benefit from having someone model expectations instead of reading about them in a book. IRT gives us a chance to glance into the classroom of a colleague to see them model their management techniques, their relationship building strategies, their deconstruction of a lesson, or just the passion for what they teach. I personally have been able to use what I see from RIT visits right away in my own classroom. Management strategies, transitioning techniques, and even the language other teachers use easily become part of my own practice. Many of the ideas I have gotten are ones that I would never have come across, read about, thought of if I hadn't witnessed them during IRT. This is a first grade. That was a third grade teacher. This is a first grade teacher. Instructional rounds gives me the opportunity to gain new perspective on my own teaching practices as well as learn new strategies from others. By design, teaching can be isolating at times. We may be the only adult in a classroom of 20 or more children. IRT opens the doors. I push myself each day to be my best for my students, and IRT gives me the chance to come together with trusted colleagues who can give me a new lens from which to see what is happening in my classroom. After observing my colleagues, I have immediately applied new and successful strategies with my students. It has challenged me and reinvigorated me at the same time. Sorry, I got to read just 2 more. This is a kindergarten teacher. I joined IRT during my first year at HHS. I was so excited to have the opportunity to visit other classrooms and learn from veteran teachers firsthand. As a new teacher, it was so reassuring to watch different teachers and affirm what I was already doing, as well as learn so many valuable strategies for good teaching. I also remember being hesitant and nervous about having my peers observe me. However, after my observation, my peers made me feel so good about what I was doing, gave great feedback, and made me feel so comfortable. Being part of IRT reaffirms what a friendly and supportive environment we have. And I promise this is the last one. This is from a specialist. After our time of observation, our IRT team sits together to reflect, share, and process what we have seen. Through this process, I have learned to trust my colleagues with my strengths and my weaknesses. My willingness to make myself vulnerable to my colleagues as a veteran teacher invites our newer teacher to feel safe doing the same. Over the years, these simple threads of trust have been weaving a powerful, positive professional culture that can't help but spill over to the school community in which we serve. As a member of IRT, I can help cultivate a positive school climate that feeds our school community and helps all students grow to their fullest potential. And I think the quotes from the staff really share the most powerful message. This has been really great for our school, and we're really excited. They're going forward with this. The next idea is to try to figure out how we can do it where we can go into other schools. So a kindergarten teacher might go to the middle school, and a high school teacher might come to elementary school. But I don't think I'll be in charge of that one. That'll be really tricky. So thank you so much for having me. If you have any questions at the end, I'm happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions before we go to the next? Let me just ask, so you said when you first started, you had 17 teachers. Are all the teachers involved in it now?
Yes, it's
Okay.
actually mandated now by the
Okay.
district. So every teacher at every school, staff member, everybody's part of the team now.
Okay, and then you said it happens 10 times a year, is that right?
So it really depends on, it's probably different in the other school, and elementary, it depends. So if we have 7 to 10 kids, if we have 7 to 10 staff members on a team, the group that has 7, they'll have it 7 times a year. They're only out of their classroom for 1 hour on that day, though.
So are
because-
they observed 7 times, or they do?
Yeah, so if we were
Okay.
all a group, you would observe me, and then we'd all have turns observing each other for
Okay.
1 hour
Gotcha.
during the school year.
Okay. Sounds great. Sounds like great conversations are going on. Thank you for coming tonight and explaining it all to us. Okay.
So, great, Melissa, thank you so much. Just to piggyback a little bit on what Melissa said, if we really want to strengthen what's going on in our classrooms, I think that we need to be talking about it not just during professional development days, not just during faculty meeting times, but we need to be talking about our practice each and every day and really having an opportunity to reflect and tweak or change some of the things that we're doing in our practice. So that ongoing conversation that is happening is absolutely making a difference for the students whom we serve every day. So thank you for your work on that, and to the teachers across the district who are all doing it. And so, great segue into our administrative walkthroughs. And so to present the administrative walkthroughs to you tonight, we have Brian Bemis, principal of Huckleberry Hill School, and Kevin Sear, the assistant principal at the high school.
Good evening. As far as administrative walkthroughs go, although they are evaluative in nature, a lot of what Melissa said rings true in terms of what we do. And when I look at student achievement, I look at those outcomes, you're going to hear a similar vibe from what we're going to say here. So again, they are evaluative, so there's the key difference, but there's a lot of similarities in terms of teaching and learning. So what do they look like? I mean, we break off into 3 teams typically before every ALT meeting, and 3 different schools out of the 4 schools. And we're going to talk a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of what that looks like. I just want to give you an idea, just to get a sense as a framework before I begin speaking. So why do we dedicate as much time as we do to, I almost said instructional rounds, to administrative walkthroughs, because it is a different model. Well, first off, this is from our district strategy, this idea of supporting continuous development, curriculum development. That is ongoing, as Jane mentioned. That dialogue needs to be ongoing, and the more you walk in through classrooms, obviously, the more organic and natural that conversation is. The idea of instructional excellence is what does that look like? You know, as teachers, as administrators, we're isolated in a lot of ways in what we do, but the last few years, there's been a real push to collaborate and bring us all to the table and really have a sense of, across the administrative team, what does instructional excellence look like in the classroom? And those conversations are rich. I know I don't have all the answers, but as a team, we get there, and we certainly are getting close in terms of what it looks like and what we should be aspiring to as educators in the building in terms of outcomes. You know, what are those high expectations? What should those look like? What should those high quality outcomes look like in the classroom? So again, I want to revert back to the district strategy, because that is driving what we're doing here, and that's a big part of the curriculum and instruction focus. And when we see it, what does it look like? What do those aha moments look like in the classroom? The need to give clear, evidence-based feedback, is critical. And if we're making claims, then we should be supporting those claims with evidence. Evidence that we're using when we talk about a common language and understanding. We should not be losing sight of the actual teacher rubric, which has which the teachers are adhering to. It's important that the teachers understand that language. It's important that we as administrators understand that language. So we're constantly unpacking that rubric as we conduct these walkthroughs. The vertical articulation piece, it has been helpful. I know it's been eye-opening for me, just being able to go down to the other schools. And when I go into an elementary classroom, there's a lot of similarities and differences. The good teaching and what good teaching looks like across the board does not look that different. However, I'm astounded by the structure in an elementary classroom as opposed to a high school classroom. So I think it's different variations, but you certainly have a deeper appreciation for both the similarities and the differences that you see across the board. And what's helpful is we're able to, when we have those conversations from a curriculum leadership standpoint, we can dig a little bit deeper. And I know where we're going next year with the idea of building on what the middle school is doing. And I think Steve mentioned a little bit earlier this idea of the Atlas mapping, the understanding by design model. As we delve deeper into that model, we're having those conversations not only at ALT, we're having those conversations at the curriculum leadership table as well. So I think it's helpful if we're all in those classrooms and we're having these conversations, and then we're having those conversations through committee work. I think it's critical that it seems like the perfect storm in the sense of teaching and learning that's happening here. Shared accountability, this might be the most important, because I know when we're in those classrooms, whether it's we, kids are paying attention. And at first they kind of chuckle, they see us come in, it's kind of a chuckle, and it's quick, but then they get down to business, and I think they really realize that we have a true appreciation for what they're doing and for what the teachers are doing. And I think that the message we're sending by just being in those classrooms is this is important to us. And the message we're sending to the teachers is we're mirroring what you're doing in through the instructional round process. We're building collaboration across the district, and we're mirroring that across our administrative leadership team. So this is hard work. It's important work. So if you're going to make it meaningful and you're going to make it authentic, it has to start over the summer. I mean, our schedules are, if you don't schedule these over the summer, it's never going to happen. So what we do, and thanks to Jen Tobias, she has built the schedule over the summer and allowed us to basically meet in different cohort groups over the course of a year. So I'll work with different principals, and sometimes Jane, and sometimes Kara will just rotate through, and we'll actually have an opportunity to visit the different schools, and we'll have an opportunity to host from time to time. So these happen before each of the administrative leadership team meetings. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how that process has become formalized. But as far as the scheduling of it, that has to happen up front, because it is important work and it has to be prioritized. I mentioned earlier the alignment of the teacher rubric, and I will say that that is something that we're bringing to the table when we meet with teachers on our walkthroughs. But again, that is something we're also bringing to the table when we meet as an administrative team immediately after the walkthroughs. So we meet when it's fresh in our minds. We don't wait. We don't come back to the table. And then we follow up again when we actually get to the ALT meeting, which we'll talk about when we get into the formalized processes of how we're moving forward.
Good evening. So as Kevin said, we conduct these administrative walkthroughs before each ALT meeting, and on the day of, we have a host administrator, and that host administrator will be conducting the walkthrough, and we meet with the host in his or her office beforehand. We get a little background on the course or the class that the teacher is teaching, and we also talk about areas of focus. Jane, on our schedule of administrative walkthroughs, Jane has put areas of focus for us to be looking for in the classroom, and that's language taken right from the teacher rubric. So they're elements from the teacher evaluation rubric, and it's a great way for us to be mindful of looking for these elements from the rubric in the classroom. For example, is the teacher asking high quality questions? Is she differentiating her instruction? Is he grouping the students appropriately? So it's a nice reminder of the things that we should be looking for when we enter a classroom. So then we go in and we conduct the walkthrough, and the host principal or assistant principal is filling out the walkthrough on his or her computer, and we all might be taking notes. We at times wander around the classroom and talk to students and check in with them and ask them, what are they learning? What is the objective of the lesson? How do you know when it's good enough? All these types of questions. And it's great to see former students
up at the middle school and the high school for us elementary administrators. And it's always fun for Bob Cleary, Kevin Sear, and myself to walk into a first grade classroom. They wonder who all these 8-foot men are in the back of the classroom. So, and then immediately when the walkthrough is over, we go directly to the host administrator's office, and we debrief. And there's no real structure to that. We'll just share what we saw, those conversations that we might have had with students, questions that we might have for the students, not really critiques, but questions. I wonder why this happened or why this didn't happen, which really generates the thought process of the host administrator, things that he or she could then include into their walkthrough, questions they may not have considered, or they, they're also able to maybe answer those questions for us because the host administrator knows the teacher and knows the makeup of that class. So, and also we might provide some feedback that could be included into the walkthrough. So it's been, Melissa talked about how beneficial it's been for the classroom teachers. It's been, for me personally, huge just to have these conversations with fellow administrators and improve my practice of conducting walkthroughs. And I'll talk a little bit, excuse me, more about that, but just making sure that we're providing teachers with quality feedback. Excuse me. So then, immediately after the walkthroughs, we go to ALT. 2 years ago, the analysis of the walkthrough was kind of on the fly. It was in the classroom, outside in the hallway outside the classroom immediately after the walkthrough, and we were lucky if we could have a meaningful conversation about the walkthroughs. We now have structured time at ALT that Jane has put on the agenda. As soon as we arrive at ALT, we might have time to continue to meet with the group that we were just with for the walkthrough to further discuss what we saw. And we also have time during ALT meetings now to share walkthroughs, to take a look at each other's walkthroughs, not necessarily evaluate, but provide each other feedback. Jane now has us also looking at our own walkthroughs and answering questions for self-reflection. And, did we answer this question? If this is feedback you were getting, would you understand what it meant and how to use it and how to use it to improve your practice? So, and for myself, you read those, you answer those questions and say, no, it wasn't very clear. So you immediately learn what you need to be doing better and differently next time. So that formal analysis has been a great addition to the administrative walkthroughs. And also through this collaboration at ALT, we've been able to develop shared expectations for the write-ups themselves, what needs to be in there, some common language that we can be that we use, common phrases, common format, so that walkthroughs look the same, in structure from one building to the next. So that if a teacher were to transfer from one school to the next, their walkthroughs would be very similar, not in content but in format. And the goal throughout all of this is again to make sure that we're providing teachers with meaningful and useful feedback, to improve in our own ability to conduct again useful walkthroughs. And I think this is just going to continue to evolve, and we're going to get better and better at this, and ultimately to improve the teaching and learning at all grade levels throughout Linfield.
You mentioned the walkthrough. I love talking to kids when I'm in there, in the classroom. And there was one incident where it was in an elementary classroom, and I was kind of standing off to the side figuring I was out of the way, and the teacher shifted gears. The next thing you know, they're actually going to assign seating on the floor, and I'm in the way, and that was kind of eye-opening to me, and so it is interesting. It takes me a little longer to actually talk to the elementary kids because I'm like, I am tall and I'm a little bit imposing. They're like, who is this guy? But no, it's been great, and we are getting more comfortable with that, and I think they're getting more comfortable with seeing us in the classroom as well. And same thing at the high school. For me to be able to say to a student, geez, Mr. Bemis was really impressed with what he saw in the classroom. That goes a long way. Or Ms. Shanklin noticed that. I think it's huge, and I think bottom line is we're doing what's in the best interest in terms of kids, and like I said earlier, the shared accountability piece is huge. So they're really paying attention as well. The educated growth. Brian mentioned how we're having these discussions collaboratively at the ALT meeting. But there's been a real push in this district the last year or so on reflection, including our most recent guest speaker that we had on the last professional day, where teachers were asked to reflect on their own education and think about their own practices. So this is something we're really requiring across the board when we do walkthroughs is the idea that teachers are reflecting, and it's just so valuable. But when I mentioned earlier, we're mirroring what we're asking teachers to do, because now we've taken a step further, and kudos to Jane. I mean, Jane has us now reflecting on our own walkthroughs. And we're using the words intentional. How are we intentionally improving the practice for our teachers? What are the strengths behind intentionally improving practice based on how we're writing these? And then when Kara or Bob or someone else in the room reads that walkthrough, is it clear? Is it crystal clear to that teacher? Because if you're going to put a claim in there, they deserve to know, how they're going to move from point A to point B. And I'll tell you, teachers want constructive feedback. Otherwise, what are we doing in our roles, if we're not giving that feedback? So it is hard work. But again, I reiterate the need, the more, if we have a common language and we're able to look at ourselves in the mirror, that's only going to improve instructional outcomes if we're improving teacher evaluation across the board. And it's embedded, like Brian said, in every ALT agenda now. Teacher evaluation is on every agenda, which is super helpful. So our eyes are constantly on that vision, and we constantly are reverting back to that district strategy. So where do we go from here? The idea is that, okay, we're really getting comfortable in terms of a common language as far as an administrative team. We're now shifting toward looking at formative assessments and summative assessments. So that's more of the pulling it all together when we meet with teachers, either at the halfway point or at the conclusion of their cycle. So we're going to build on that and to see what that language looks like in terms of how we're summarizing that feedback, and are we hitting those salient points that we've highlighted throughout the year? Are we not losing sight of those points with the teacher? That, this is something we've talked about, this is something we've targeted, but is it clear at that summative point or at that midway point that we're not losing sight of, what's important here and what we really want the focus to be? So once we are growing, like I said, more comfortable, the idea next year is that we now extend this to department heads, department leaders, and making sure that they're trained in terms of having a keen eye for what effective evaluation should look like in the classroom. And again, that goes to feedback and that goes to reflection. What is it we want to communicate to teachers? What do we want in turn from teachers? And what does that look like? So I think it's important that we're going to extend that and just increasing collaboration across the district and working, as a team. I've always said teaching is an isolated profession, and I'll say that administration is isolated as well. And I think that whether it be our professional development in this district or the leadership, we have become a super collaborative district. And this, everything we're talking about tonight, including the middle school presentation, speaks to that collaboration. So I think that we're just going to increase that collaboration. We're going to continue to build on it. And we're going to bring that to the curriculum leadership team and really, take that a step further, making sure that we're just providing quality feedback across the board. So that's our vision, and we're excited. So at this point, please, I don't want to forget to thank Matthew Mazzarella and our student help desk for the graphics within this presentation. They always come through. This isn't all us. I have to give a plug to the student help desk, so I love those guys. So thank you.
Collaboration.
Exactly. Empowering students.
I do have one question. I'm a little confused, and my confusion might make this a confusing question. So at the beginning, you said that this was unlike the IRTs, this was evaluative, but it's not doing the teacher evaluation. It's different than that, right?
Not what we're doing. What we're doing is tied directly into the teacher evaluation.
It's-
So we
some
are
of you
evaluating teachers.
Some of you are in there who aren't the evaluator for the
Correct.
teacher, right?
So those discussions are still happening about in terms of what the host is seeing in that classroom in terms of teaching and learning. The host is actually conducting the write-up. However, it is super helpful to have additional set of eyes and ears. You spread out in the classroom, you've got more adults talking to kids. You've just got another set of multiple sets of eyes on that classroom, and it's super helpful. Even if I have some questions as the host, just to if I want to make sure that what I saw is indeed accurate, or perhaps that's substantiated by a conversation that someone else at the table may have had with a student or whatnot. So yeah, no, this is teacher evaluation.
So then it would also serve to make sure that you have that inter-rater reliability across all the evaluations in the district, correct?
Yeah, so that when I talk about a common language, I'm referring to the calibration as well in terms of absolutely that we are consistently using clear language that's directly tied to the teacher rubric across the board. So I think, Dorothy, to answer that question, I think the more that we unpack that rubric and the more that we have a real solid understanding of that rubric, it's going to be that much more helpful for the teachers, because we also have to look at like you said, the ratings. There's exemplary, there's proficiency, there's unsatisfactory, and there's needs improvement. So you're right, we should all be on the same page. An exemplary teacher in my building shouldn't look that much different than someone at the elementary level, and they should be modeling the behavior. To reach the exemplary level, they should be modeling it. And same thing if we're going to look at a proficient teacher.
So then when you go into a classroom, are you also aware of the teacher's goals for their evaluation?
I may not be privy to that as a visitor. The host would be. One thing I will tell you too is that when we go, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but when we go into a classroom, Jane has already provided us with the focus specifically from the teacher rubric that we're going to focus on standards 1A and 1B today. We might be looking at high expectations, and we may be looking at how the teacher is actually communicating those expectations. But through the conversation I might be having with Brian as the host, it may come to light, what those goals are, but I may not necessarily know that up front. You're welcome.
How many classrooms do you guys hit in the building each year as the administrative walkthroughs? So like I know Melissa hit 10 in her building, or 7 depending on what her team is. How many are you guys hitting as administrators across the district?
You're referring to the team or just more the team approach?
So how many times am I hosting, for example?
I guess the more specific question would be, how many times is Kevin out of the high school going to either hit the middle school or Summer Street or Huck, and vice versa? How many times are you leaving Huck and hitting either Summer or the middle school or the high school? So I know, like Melissa had a set, like I know she hit somewhere between 7 and 10 based on how the team is. How much exposure are the administrators getting to other types of teaching outside of their building, I guess is the question, specifically associated with these walkthroughs.
I think I probably host 3 or 4 times during the year, and then the rest of the ALT meetings, which we have, I don't know, 2 a month, so almost every other week. So I'm hosting 4 times, and all the rest of the times are spent in the other buildings.
So you're out of the building 12, let's say. If you're hosting 4, you're probably going on.
So, yeah, I get a good chance to see the other schools.
And then I just have one more follow-up. In Melissa's presentation, they had like the worksheet, the reflection worksheet, and you guys in your presentation both touched upon informal and formal analysis. I get the formal because the formal is probably the teacher evaluation, right? Is that correct to say? Or
No,
where's
when I
the
was talking about formal analysis, it was at ALT, printed out copies of walkthroughs, looking at walkthroughs, taking time to quietly, by myself, read through walkthroughs, and then meet in a small group and share my thoughts about those walkthroughs and answer some questions that Jane has prepared for us. Is the objective clear? Based on this feedback, how would the lesson look differently? So you kind of we might read our own walkthroughs and critique our own, but then I might read 3 or 4 or 5 from other administrators and kind of put on the hat of a teacher and say, if I'm receiving this, do I understand? And do I understand what the feedback means and how I need to change my practice? And I might read Kevin's walkthroughs and say, by reading Kevin's walkthrough, do I get a good sense of what happened in that classroom that day? So that's the formal analysis. There's a lot of walkthroughs on the table, and we're critiquing them, and we're taking a page from the teacher's book where we're kind of leaving checking our ego at the door, and we're open to the criticism and the feedback from our peers as well. And we'll do that walkthrough in the morning, and 2 days later, a day later, when it finally gets typed up, I might share it again with the people that did the walkthrough from me and ask for one last look at this. Does this make sense? Am I reporting what we all saw in that lesson? So it's been a great process.
And we recently really reached a consensus on what we consider to be non-negotiables, whether it be in terms of format or really what belongs under engagement, what belongs under instruction, and how should we be wording objectives in terms of student learning outcomes. So I think that's been helpful to come up with the non-negotiable list, but that's based on everything that Brian just talked about in order to get to that point.
And even conversation of where should the recommendation go? Should it go at the end,
Right.
or should it immediately follow a critique? So we've had conversations, and that's the format I was speaking of before. Where should teachers look for, or should they look for them? Are they embedded? And we've come to the consensus that they're embedded, and they follow what we noticed. Here's a recommendation, or here's a critique, and here's a suggestion. So it's right.
You don't want to be wishy-washy because the language is so important. The idea of suggesting versus encouraging versus actually recommending. I mean, if we really want to improve teaching and learning, then the language, I think, just becomes critical. So.
Just one more simple one. Are your observations an hour or in a classroom? They could be more or less
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
The minimum 10 minutes?
Yep.
Usually somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes.
A lot of that depends on what's going on in the classroom.
So I understand how the instructional rounds, as described by Melissa, are non-evaluative, non-judgmental, and the administrative walkthroughs are clearly more tied into the supervision and evaluation protocol. However, is it possible that the processes associated with the instructional rounds could be considered a formal support mechanism for a teacher on an improvement plan?
And I think that could be something that comes out of what Kevin was talking about when we're moving forward with the curriculum council and the directors of curriculum, department heads, and maybe I don't know. Look at maybe some of the walkthroughs in the future are just instructional rounds, and they're not walkthroughs. They're just for some supervision and some unofficial feedback to the teacher.
Yeah, and where we, Sal, just to build on that too, is with the teachers on improvement plans, we assign mentors. And I think I'd be worried about having too many voices as part of that process. However, we moving forward are looking to build our mentor program and really support mentors. And the other part of this is if you have a teacher on improvement plan, and maybe you are referencing this, is absolutely they should be going out and seeing other teachers, and we should be supporting that. And so I guess the inverse of that.
Can I just say one thing about that? Because part of the new mentoring program that Jane has put together has that mentors are asked to help with a new teacher, have someone cover their class, and reach out to other people in their building who they can learn from. So that's actually part of the mentoring program now.
Great. Thank you guys very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Okay. All right, the next item we have on the agenda is the 2016-2017 school calendar. Unfortunately, some of the implications of the calendar are contractual items, and the contract hasn't been ratified yet. It'll be ratified tomorrow, so we have to move that agenda item to our next meeting. So, to be continued. So the next item on the agenda is the Chapter 70 resolution. It was discussed at our last meeting, so we need a motion. Pass it.
Move to approve. Move to pass the Chapter 70 resolution, or the resolution calling for full funding of the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions?
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
Since I don't know what the count was at our last meeting, but as of today, there were 71 different boards across the state that had had passed the resolution, including cities, including regional districts, Cape towns, Berkshire towns, all over the state. So we're really pleased with the support that it's getting, and particularly the fact that it's not just school committees, but it's also boards of selectmen and finance committees that are passing it. And some of the boards that have passed it actually represent regional districts, so there's well over 80 communities that are represented in who's passed it. So,
Dorothy, have we brought this to our selectmen and FinCom yet?
I thought we should probably pass it first before we
Just Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, excellent. Passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public participation. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so three things that I'd like to report out on tonight. The first thing is, as I reported out very early in the year, we are now part of the Best Buddies program, which has just been so great for our students here in Linfield. And the Best Buddies has actually has a statewide prom that will take place on April 2nd. And 15 of our Linfield High School students will be attending that prom. It's at Dighton Rehoboth High School. We are providing buses and chaperones for the students who will be leaving from the high school. Morgan Rybicki at the high school she will be going as one of the chaperones, and she has two of the chaperones going with her. One of the things that I think is really nice about this event is that we have a combination of peer models that participate in the Best Buddies program along with some of our students with special needs. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's a great opportunity for our students, and I'm sure they're going to have a great time. So I just wanted to share that information with you. Any questions on that? Okay. So the next thing that I want to report out on is, as you know, our community schools runs a SAT prep class for our students, and I just thought it was interesting that this year we actually have the highest number of students participating in that. There are close to 100 students who have signed up for the program. Pretty much half and half, 50 are taking verbal section and 50 are taking the math section, approximately 50. Our math teachers from the high school, Nicole Hawes and Audrey Coates, are teaching the math part of that, and Joey Pulio and Stephanie Marcoux, two of our English teachers from the high school, are teaching the verbal part of that. Last year, we had 80 students, and in the year before that, we had 46 students who took advantage of it. So I think that that's a good thing, that our students are taking advantage of that, and we have 4 great teachers who are teaching it. So I want to share that as well.
Is there any reason, for lack of a better word, that you see that is causing an increase in participation?
You know, Michael and Herrick and I talked about what the possible reasons could be, and we're really not 100% sure. If I had to guess, it might be that, go ahead. The new SAT course, and the kids probably have had success with it and are talking about it, and so that's probably drumming up some more business as well.
Did we give the PSAT this year as part of the school day?
We
Would
did.
that also have
It may,
perhaps?
that's a good point. It may have. Good. Okay. And then the next update is on the next generation of MCAS. So based on the work that was done by Next Generation of MCAS Test Administration Workshop, there are some things to report. Next year, they are planning on having a later testing window, beginning in April, probably after April vacation, and extending straight through May, believing that the later time will be less disruptive to instructional time in March. So we think that that's probably a very good thing. Grades 3 to 8, they're going to have a new design with some computer-based testing. And if we choose to do the computer-based, they're actually going to have a longer time frame. Rather than just the paper and pencil. The specific dates of when the testing will occur will come out later. And also the quantity of the testing for each grade level, that is not determined yet either. For the high school students, they're actually going to keep it as similar as possible to the testing that they currently have. So as we continue to get updates on that, I will continue to share those updates with you.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Okay, so our next item are the matters for action. So we need the school budget vote. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the 2016-2017 operating budget in the amount of $22,865,421.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
There you go.
Go for it.
All right. So before we vote on this, I want us to consider a amendment to the full day kindergarten piece of this. As you know, I've had some concerns about the proposal to eliminate tuition all at once for financial reasons. Looking at the long-term impact and the long-term finances of the town. So what I'm going to do is read through this proposal, because really what it does is phase it in, and then talk a little bit about how I got there, and open it up for discussion. So the proposal is that we reduce the fiscal year budget by $100,000 to be offset by kindergarten tuition. Additionally, Lynnfield Public Schools will take steps to review and study the financial impact of providing mandatory full-day tuition-free kindergarten for all students beginning in fiscal year 2019, so it's the 2018-19 school year, pending a final vote by the school committee with the fiscal year 2019 budget. During fiscal years 17 and 18, the full-day tuition would be reduced from $2,600 to $1,000 due prior to the first day of school. So when we first started talking about this back in December and January, my mind was kind of all over the place. And as I kind of thought about it and talked through it and listened to, got other input on it, really this came down to two real distinct trains of thought for me. This is a philosophical issue, and this is a financial issue. And make no mistake about it, I am more than 100% philosophically on board and supportive of full-day kindergarten. But thinking about the financial impact of this and looking at some of the long-term needs, I think we need to study this a little bit more. So it really comes down to three areas for me: the financial assumptions that are built into this, the enrollment projections that we may or may not have, and potential facilities needs. When we talk about the financial assumptions of this, we're doing this at a time when we've had tremendous revenue growth as a town. And now we're facing a time when that revenue is frankly plateauing. You know, we've seen as much, we're reaching the peak with Market Street, which has been a nice boost for the town. But there are a lot of needs throughout the town, and there's going to be a lot of, there's going to be a lot of pull for resources in upcoming years. We built this proposal based on, this proposal was based on equal or similar increases in budgets from previous years. We don't know if that's going to be realistic for years going forward. We also don't know, given some of our needs in the future, whether that's going to actually be enough. So before we start giving up a revenue source of $250,000 and asking the town for that, I think we need to look a little bit deeper at that. On the enrollment side, we made the decision last year to move the preschool to Summer Street School. We had projections on our enrollment that it would last us for 4 years. And then in year one, we blew past the enrollment projections by 15%. And I know projecting kindergarten is probably one of the hardest things that we have to do as a district. But we need to understand whether this enrollment increase is a trend, because it has now happened 2 of the last 3 years, or just a unusual blip on the radar. I don't want to be in a position where we have to start adding more and more staff, which is adding more and more cost to our budget, when we've just given up a revenue source. And then the last point of that is facilities. So again, we have larger than expected classes at Summer Street. It's filling up. So I know we have to do some long-term facilities planning to be able to best accommodate our students while maintaining the integrated preschool, giving art and music the space that they need, and having the space to really provide the right learning experiences for everyone. Additionally, the renovations to the elementary schools and LMS are reaching a point where just natural wear and tear is going to start to take its toll. And there are, I'm sure, going to be costs associated with regular upkeep that we need to think about. So while I fully support the full-day kindergarten, I want us to at least consider the idea of phasing it in over 2 or 3 years, as opposed to doing it in one fell swoop.
So, do you have a motion?
Yep. So the motion would be to reduce the fiscal year 2017 budget, operating budget, by $100,000 to be offset by kindergarten tuition. Additionally, Lynnfield Public Schools will take steps to review and study the financial impact of providing mandatory full-day tuition-free in kindergarten for all students beginning in fiscal year 2019, pending a final vote by the school committee, with the fiscal year 2019 budget. During fiscal years 17 and 18, the full day tuition will be reduced to $1,000 due prior to the first day of school.
Do you have
I just, a clarification on the term mandatory for kindergarten
Can
attendance.
we,
I'm
because there's
sorry.
not a
Jeff.
second to the motion, so
Oh, okay.
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Sal, did you want to?
Thank you. So just a question.
Discuss.
Thank you. Question about mandatory kindergarten attendance. And correct me if I'm wrong, the regulations now in the state require establishment of kindergarten, but not attendance of kindergarten. So I'm just, is the term mandatory?
So the
Just curious
proposed,
about why using that term.
well, so the proposal that's on the table with the budget is for mandatory full-day kindergarten.
Not necessarily. It is for a full day, a tuition-free full-day program. Parents don't have to send their children, but the proposal is to offer a tuition-free full-day program.
So I would amend it to,
Thank you.
to offer a full-day tuition-free kindergarten.
So I have a bunch of questions.
Good.
So the first is, my impression from the presentation that a couple of impressions from the presentation we had earlier is, first of all, that this is being phased in over several years, the impact on the budget. So I guess I question whether, or perhaps Tom Geary or Jane could explain that there is a phase-in, according to my understanding, or correct me if I'm wrong.
So there is a phase-in, and I'm going to ask Tom to come to the microphone and explain exactly how the phase-in would happen.
We're anticipating having, by the end of the school year, about $300,000 in our account to be spent down over the next 3 fiscal years until the account zeroes out in FY20, and it would be the cost would be fully absorbed into our budget. Does that answer anything? I don't know. That's the nuts and bolts of it. I can go into a lot greater financial
Well, I think
detail.
it does, that
yeah.
there is a phase-in, so it's a gradual
Yeah,
impact on
and
the budget.
the amount we have ramps down. We're
Mhm.
absorbing the biggest quote-unquote hit to our budget this year of about $120,000. When I say this year, I mean moving into the FY17 budget.
Right, but I think the broader point is, I understand how that's working. You know, really what this is once we give up this revenue source, and once we go there, I mean, the analogy I use is once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's not going back. So, you know, we have to have a really good understanding of what our long-term financial, what our costs are going to be, because it is, I mean, we are asking the town for an additional right now it's an additional $240,000 to $250,000. It will go up, and that's in perpetuity.
I don't think those are the right numbers, according to what I understand. That
What we collect, the cost of the program can run, the cost of the .3 program could be anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 per year. How much we bring in, obviously, is directly determined by enrollment and how many actual paying customers we have.
But the impact on the budget this year is not.
Correct. It's $120,000 reduction in revenue, ramping down to cover the full 200. I called it 278,000 to be fully absorbed by FY20.
So when you say you want to study the financial impact of it over the next couple of years, what kind of questions would you ask, or would you get 2 years down the road and still wonder what the next 2 years would bring?
No, it's a great question. I think it is. It's really the enrollment trends. So are we looking at bigger classes, which is going to require more teachers, and facilities needs? And I look at the facilities needs in 2 ways. One is if classes keep getting bigger, we're going to need more space. But even with the move of the the preschool over to Summer Street, the reality is, when we talked about it last year, that we knew that was good for about 4 years, and then, there were a lot of question marks. So, are we going to need more space for preschool? I mean, we gave up some space last year. Are we going to need to get that space back? I think we just need to have a better understanding of what that looks like.
So, two things. First of all, the enrollment. It's almost impossible to get an understanding of what the enrollment's going to be for the kindergartens for the next 2 to 3 years. It's something that I think that we have always struggled with, and so there have been times that we have come to July and we suddenly get 20 new kindergarten students, so we need to add a new teacher. I think to say that we want to collect data on what that's going to look like for the next 3 years, I don't think that data is there, because we don't know now what our kindergarten numbers are going to look like. Right now, if I were to tell you what our kindergarten numbers would be, we're going to have 78 at Huckleberry and we're going to have 65 at Summer Street. Based on that, I should be running 3 classrooms at Summer Street. But the truth of the matter is that data is going to change. It will not only change after April, when we do the kindergarten screening, that data will continue to change until the opening of the day. So to project out for the next 2 to 3 years, I've never been able to do that as an administrator in Linfield, and I'm not sure if anyone else has been able to do that either. In terms of the facilities are always something that we're looking at. Each year, we spend an incredible amount of time behind the scenes looking at spaces, reallocating spaces. We do that every single year. This year was no different than any year that we've done it in the past. We just spent 3 hours at Summer Street School, Tom, Kara, Jen Tobias, there are a couple other people looking at space for next year and where we're going to put everybody. Again, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know if we're going to need another classroom in the FY17-18 budget, but I think that if we go back to the original proposal and why this proposal was put on the table, that it was put on the table because it was in the best interest of students. It was put on the table because we wanted to change the programming, and it doesn't allow us to do that with .7. And I think with the phase-in, there's no guarantee it's ever going to happen in terms of full day, and it actually puts it on hold for at least 2 to 3 years. And so I would just say that I'm not so sure that we have the luxury of that time.
Well, but, I mean, this is getting into the philosophical piece of it, and again, I agree with it philosophically. It is, there is the reality that we have two of the top elementary schools in the state. I mean, and so having a .7 program hasn't exactly hurt us up to this point. I mean, I know that's counter to the philosophical piece, but I mean, it is a reality, and it's, do we have, so first of all, let me just address 2 of these. This in 2 pieces. First of all is the projection. I know it's impossible to project kindergarten, or nearly impossible to project kindergarten, but the reality is we have two what seemed like outliers in the last 3 years in terms of big classes at Summer Street School. I think it's important to understand if this is the beginning of a trend or not. And the only way we get to see that is you just need time to be able to do that. And then will we need the financial, do we need to be able to support that financially, through staffing increases, through either through staffing increases or through facilities resources needs.
I get exactly where you're coming from, because I have the same exact concerns. The financial component to me is the bigger one. You're giving up the revenue. But the other items that we identify, like enrollment and facilities, those are so fluid. There's so many mitigating factors that can influence those in one direction or the other, that to reduce it or to phase it in, to put it on hold because of fear of what those factors may or may not be down the road is not a good reason. To me, it's either we do it or we don't do it. I don't see any benefit of doing $1,000 tuition. There's an opportunity this year to kind of introduce it and ramp it down over the course of time. You're 100% right. The fiscal one, you have no idea. You are giving up the money. That's a reality. But there may be other factors that, you talk about growing enrollment. Well, we know we have a second grade class that's 150 kids that eventually is going to be up at the middle school that now is servicing class sizes of 200. So we're going to be able to shift teachers around in that sense. So I know exactly where you're coming from. I don't have any argument against the fiscal portion of it. The philosophical, I'm right on board with the superintendent and how she feels. I think it's an all or nothing approach. I think I know where the balance of my peers are going on this. So to me, it's let's bite the bullet now and roll with it and let the chips fall where they may. That's kind of where I am right now, and it's really a factor of appreciating where the committee wants to go, majority of the committee, and I think it's appropriate to get behind the superintendent. I think she's identified really appropriate reasons, real strong reasons why it should work, why it would be beneficial, but to approach, to do the Band-Aid approach and kind of kick the can down the road to revisit it in 3 years, to me, all you're doing is just kicking the can down the road, and it doesn't do anything. We're back at the same discussion, and we probably will have the same fears. So you do it while the opportunity is here, and the opportunity presented itself through some significant savings, and we grab at it and go, and to act or not act, to go halfway down the road out of some kind of fear of the unknown, which is influenced by so many mitigating factors, either economy and move-ins and move-outs and what can happen at a facility, what can't happen at the facility. The fact of the matter is the facilities are getting used. They're getting used constantly. I don't think we're going to see an influx of 100 kids going to Summer Street. We may see an influx of 100 kids across the school district, but I certainly don't think that will compromise the facilities. And I think if you look at the enrollment that now, that we actually can analyze and we can see, there's some smaller classes that are moving into the middle school, and there's some pretty big classes that are moving out of the middle school. So I think, as we did in this year's budget, we were able to grab a couple teachers and throw them down the elementary. We'll probably have that opportunity at least in the next couple of years to do the same thing. So, I know exactly where you're coming on the financial portion, but I think, I know where the committee's going, and I think the opportunity's there, and to let that opportunity go by, I think we'd be kicking ourselves down the road. And to do the Band-Aid approach, it's, I talked to Dorothy recently, and we had a similar discussion about milk. A couple of years ago, we had a question of whether to raise milk by 25 cents for 2 years or 50 cents for 1 year. And, just do it all at once and get it over with, because you don't want to go back and revisit the issue. And I think this is obviously a much greater impact, but it's the same thing. It's no sense in kicking the can down the road, and the opportunity may not present itself again. So for that reason, it's either we take it all off or we go for it. And I think, like I said, I know where the balance of my peers, I think I know where they're going, and I'll get behind them on that as well. So.
Chocolate milk should cost more, by the way, doesn't it? So the dilemma and the challenge obviously lies between the financial and the philosophical. As members of the school board, we absolutely have a fiduciary responsibility. We're gatekeepers of the budget. We need to look at our revenue, our resources, our expenditures. But I believe we have a great responsibility to ensure that as many students as possible access as many high-quality programs as possible. And I believe that's the rationale and the intent behind Superintendent Tremblay's recommendation for this initiative of universal full-day kindergarten. The rationale is very clear as she presented it here to the FinCom, to the selectmen. I'm just moved more by the philosophical, which is actually more concrete because it's clear, very clear, that the best way to move the district forward, and we move the district forward in many, many ways, but one of the best ways is to guarantee universal access to all age-eligible kindergarten children. And I think if it is universal free access, we will have more children participating. So I certainly support the initiative. Thank you.
Just one more, and this, one more point, and it falls clearly in the philosophical, I know, not the financial, but we do have really good elementary schools, but we also have the responsibility, and I think if you look back sort of at ed reform, where schools were kind of forced to say, don't look at the big picture, but be looking at your subgroups, be looking at individual students, that this is the way that we're looking at individual students and making sure that, you know, we've talked about sometimes the kids that aren't participating are the kids that need it the most. So this doesn't excuse us from looking at any group that may benefit from full-day kindergarten. And I think that's important to look, you know, for all the talk that we had tonight about all this wonderful collaboration that's going on across the district, which is all focused on making sure that every single student in this district has the best opportunity to succeed. And I see this as another way that we can make sure that every student has the best opportunity to succeed.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I do just want to say a couple things. And I appreciate your concerns, and I think they're all good questions. And I guess my argument errs on the philosophical side as well. But you know, your suggestion is delaying, you know, the whole kindergarten culture changing for 3 years. And I guess watching the presentation from the kindergarten teachers and all the information we have received, it's that the expectations from the Massachusetts frameworks are very difficult to fit into the 0.7 day, and we can't change that until we offer full-day, tuition-free full-day kindergarten. So we can't change that for 3 years. And as Dorothy mentioned, tonight we sit here and listen to these presentations and words like intentional improvement and what's good for all kids and the individuality of all that was presented here tonight. That's the culture here, is that we speak to all kids, and so to say, okay, we're okay with kindergarten not being the best it could be for another 3 years, it just doesn't feel like something we'd hear at one of our meetings. It doesn't, it's like one of these things is not like the other, as far as I'm concerned. So it's what Tim said, you know, do it now or don't do it and figure out how. I mean, I'm certain that, you know, if we can't offer it for one reason or another, the kindergarten teachers are going to do a great job with the time that they have with the kids. But I think Jane's budget has the intention of moving the district forward, and that's one of the ways, because I feel like delaying an improvement in the elementary schools, even though they're doing wonderfully now, it doesn't fit that, you know, continuous improvement model that we talk about so much. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But does anyone else have any other comments?
Just have one more follow-up.
Okay.
Just dawned on me. And I think you hit something on the head because you identified 3 factors, but there's also a 4th factor. And I think we all have to go into this with our eyes wide open, that at year 2020, when it's fully implemented, it is potentially going to limit our flexibility on what we can and can't do within the budget. And so I'm going in with eyes wide open, knowing that at some point there may be something that we want that we're not going to be able to do simply because we don't have the funds to do it. But as every other committee has done in the past, we get creative and we figure it out. But that's definitely there's something that, one of the elements you didn't hit on, but it's definitely out there going forward, that we, eyes wide open, that at some point we're gonna need something. And by making this vote and making this leap, it could potentially cuff a committee down the road. But that's a informed decision that we're all gonna make, but that ought to be recognized as well, but.
Well, sorry. We make those decisions all the time.
Yep,
in any budget that we do, and certainly, we know, we've scraped for the $5,000 or whatever to get something done. And it'll come down the road at some point, there's no question about it. But if we always make decisions based on an unknown future, or we don't make decisions because the future is unknown, then we stop progress, so.
Okay, so Jamie's made a motion, it's been seconded by Dorothy. So.
And amended.
And amended, yes. Okay, so.
It's Jamie's amendment first, and then to the main motion, which is.
Correct, so it's all who's in favor of Jamie's amendment.
Roll call?
No,
Okay.
no, we're just waiting.
Yes.
Okay, all those opposed?
No.
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 Is it roll call, or is it just, okay. Okay. Did you vote, or?
I said no.
No, okay. All right, so the amendment fails. So now we go back to the original motion, which was the operating budget in the amount of $22,865,421. And that has been moved and seconded. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The motion the budget passes.
That was the answer to the question.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and so then we have one more motion.
Move to approve the 2016-2017 capital budget in the amount of $250,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Excellent. The capital budget passes. Excellent. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you all for coming tonight.